So my name is Melora Green, and I am the curator for Inquiry and Impact here at SOMArts Cultural Center. And this is my amazing co-curator, Rula.
Thank you. My name is Rula Saiku, and I'm a curator and writer based here in San Francisco.
Racism exists, sexism exists, homophobia exists, and as long as there's no type of equality, then we do need spaces that are welcoming to everyone's story, no matter what it is. So the African American Art and Culture Complex is so needed right now. There are 3% African Americans. So you have to think about what that consideration would be for an African American story in a place where we're rarely there. And think about a space like SOMArts. Well, San Francisco has changed so much to where it doesn't even matter what your ethnicity is or your gender preference is, you will probably have a hard time finding a space that's even affordable or that even understands your struggle. Some places don't have that understanding or that curiosity to know what you need. SOMArts is one of those places, and that's regardless of what your ethnicity is or how you create your work. And we don't censor artists. So whereas you may see a complete nude exhibition here, that's not going to be welcome in some places. So they're very needed.
Absolutely. I would say also thinking of like the Baby Youth Opera House and the other organizations that have been specifically set up in a variety, different neighborhoods here in San Francisco. Like this is 1974, 75 when that program got underway, and we're 40 years past that. Almost 40 years past that at some point, and that those institutions have gone through so many changes, yet at the same time continue to serve their neighborhoods. And it's not just the cultural centers; those are a good example, at least from my thinking on the subject. Just that without those, there would not be an outlet for music, for dance, for visual art, for education, for just creating space, creating access effectively in a variety of neighborhoods.
So my name is Mohammed Soriano Bilal, and I'm the Executive Director of the African American Art and Culture Complex. I think alternative spaces are critical to artistic expression. Not just because there is a roof and a floor and walls and people can come in and participate, but I think that many of the places where I've been allowed to experiment with my art and I've seen experimentation has occurred in alternative spaces. It hasn't occurred in many of the pristine spaces. Those spaces are there for showcasing artwork that has been refined to some extent, right? Like they've gone through all the filters to get to this sort of pristine place. It's almost like a gallery when you go and you watch art in those places. But the smaller places, the alternative spaces, like the upper room that my dad used to run, like this center, like SOMArts, you get to see the funk, man. You get to see like the funk in art, right? It's not always perfect. Sometimes, it throws you a little bit. But without those places, you wouldn't have those artists being able to come in and kind of present this thing, however it is, right? However rough hewn it is, they're able to present it. And in some cases, they're able to refine it so eventually it's ready for one of those other places. So in a way, we're like the development league, right? It's like what the Warriors used to be before we won a championship, right? So you come to alternative spaces, you get these experiences you wouldn't otherwise get anywhere else, and they're intimate, they're close, right? The artists are right in your face. And it's kind of a counterpoint to the other more pristine places.
My name is Zachary Royer Scholes. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., which is where I was born and raised. I first started interacting with alternative art spaces in the Bay Area in the 90s when I was doing my undergraduate work out here at Stanford University. I would come up to the city and sort of go to the spaces of the day, many of which are still around, some of which aren't. The thing that's really struck me about what alternative space means or is to me now is, well, historically it sort of arose out of a specific set of conditions. It was partly, San Francisco was nowhere. There was kind of no contemporary art market in San Francisco. But there was all this generative energy surrounding really sort of always, but coming to a kind of new bloom in the kind of 50s and early 60s, coming up with beats. This real cross-disciplinary interaction of jazz music in San Francisco, art, literature, poetry, and it kind of spinning off these new forms, creating a really like sort of diverse bohemian creative class.
My name is Christian Frock. I'm an independent curator and writer based in the Bay Area. My independent curatorial enterprise, Invisible Venue, was started in 2005, and I collaborate with artists to present art in public spaces, online, and in the built environment. Alternative spaces address what artists need right then in that moment, and so you can't rely on large institutions to be able to do things as nimbly as alternative spaces. That's one of the great strengths of an alternative space. They can respond in the immediate moment to things that are happening in the world and support artists that way. And then, you know, you have these great sort of projects that artists produce in their garages or their living rooms or a postal box or something like that. All of that stuff really matters in the long term. I mean, they're small gestures that become huge factors in terms of thinking about the evolution of art and contemporary practice.
The question of whether we still need alternative spaces is really one that I've been thinking about for at least 10 years, and it's difficult because for my generation, a lot of those ideas have been usurped and co-opted by museums. You know, the idea, it's hard for younger people to realize or believe that museums never showed installation art or video back in the 70s or 80s. So a lot of that founding spirit can now be found in museums. So the question becomes, okay, so how can alternative spaces have a reason for existing other than oppositional? You know, what positive thing can they contribute? You know, it's always going to be hard for big institutions. The old cliche of it takes a long time to turn an aircraft carrier, and most of these institutions are aircraft carriers, even this one is modest. So alternative spaces can be faster. We used to say when I was at New Langton Arts, you can come see it here now, or you can wait 10 years and see it at a certain moment.
My name is Emory Douglas, former Minister of Culture, revolutionary artist for the Black Panther Party. I do political and social graphics, art, graphic arts. We always need alternative spaces because if there were no alternative spaces, then you'd have a lot of people left out. You wouldn't get that message. You wouldn't get that message that deals with issues that concern people who are outside of who are locked out or pushed out of the mainstream society.
I think space is beside the issue. I mean, you know, if I had my way, I'd get rid of all the galleries and all the museums and all the performance art spaces, period. I'd wipe them all out. I think something dies when you create these kind of spaces that are only dedicated to art. It feels always to me like you're putting exotic animals in a petting zoo. It's already is contained, it's already always safe. So much of my art is about being in the street. You know, how kind of transgressive can you fucking be on a stage anymore? Who the fuck cares what happens on a stage where, you know, and I go to these theaters and I see it's always the same fucking 55 people at every goddamn show. The audience isn't growing. So, you know, my dream is always, you know, if you want to have kind of these spaces in neighborhoods, think about having multi-purpose spaces that are about, you know, a space that you can put on a play, but also do a high school graduation and do someone's retirement party, you know, and host a basketball game. I mean, that's what I think is, you know, where you're not kind of taking art and separating it, where it really is within the fabric of what the community needs a common space to be about. So I'm definitely, you know, I think when you have these kind of dedicated art spaces, you develop audiences that are art-going audiences. And who cares? These are people who go to 55 things a year. They don't need more art. You want to reach people who actually are intimidated by going to the theater or intimidated in going to galleries, and you want to put art out there so when you go to someone's home, you're not going to see a show. You go into someone's house as a guest, see, it changes the dynamic. And what I see in home shows is that a lot of times, you know, certainly in my shows, it's just people around the neighborhood. They don't go to shows. but they're just coming to go see someone perform and so they have a fun time, there's food and booze, they have a story to tell the next day about where they went. And that really, you know, I talk a lot about lowering the bar for artists, but also lowering the bar for audiences too. Not a big fucking deal. You just go to someone's house 2 blocks down to see a show. How great is that? That's how art should happen.
I'm Mrs. Elizabeth Stevens, her partner, #1. I'm an ecosexual. I'm made up of water and stardust and minerals and poop. I'm an artist and she's my muse.
And I'm Mrs. Annie Sprinkle, and I'm an artist and a professor and an environmental activist, and I'm made up of all of the things that Annie's made up of, except the poop. Oh my God, do we ever need alternative spaces now, especially now, because our culture seems to just be melding into one monolithic, capitalistic, neoliberal, beige room. It's not even white, it's just beige, you know, and I hate beige. But so alternative spaces, you know, bring all kinds of things to the playing table, right? They bring unexpected surprises, they bring, you know, work that would never get seen in commercial galleries like our work, because our work isn't really profitable in terms of selling. So alternative spaces allow artists who are not established to show their work, and those people are the future, right? It's not the establishment that's the future, it's the people that are not established. So I think alternative spaces are essential to breathe life into our culture and to breathe life into the already established spaces that are out there. Yes, we do need them. More than ever now.
I think we really need our alternative spaces. It's like playing the piano. You need the high keys and the low keys and all the black keys, and so we can get the full range. I love going to Museum of Modern Art or the Metropolitan. They offer something really powerful and beautiful, but alternative spaces also do, in a way that those highbrow institutions can't.
Do we still need alternative spaces? Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, it's a fundamental question in this period of transition that we're engaged in, where we're moving from the analog physical reality to the digital, remote, virtual world in a way. And, you know, the simple answer is yes, of course we need to give voice to alternative positions and positions that are outside the mainstream of either the art market or whatever, you know, whatever form of capitalism is in control. But how we do that, you know, I think is sort of being reinvented now, and it could be through social networks. I like to think of Instagram as a creative medium. I mean, there's a fair number of people who just post photos of their dogs or what they're eating, but then there's others who I feel like, you know, I'm always going to find an artwork every time I go on Instagram.
Hi, my name is Madison Young, and I am a body-based performance artist. I also create installations. I am a curator and a sexual revolutionary. We still need alternative spaces. We totally still need alternative spaces. We need alternative spaces more than ever. We will need alternative spaces as long as there are freaks, as long as there are people pushing boundaries, as long as there are queers, and there are people that identify in different askew ways, which will be forever. And even if all of our physical spaces are pulled from our hands, we will pick up the chalk and draw a circle, and we will continue to create our own alternative physical spaces. You know, we're a community, and when we hold hands and when we join in a circle and when we gather, that becomes our space. And I think that in this current economic situation of San Francisco and the changes that are happening with the tech boom that we're in, and how that's affecting the artist community, that it's really important more now than ever to stay connected to each other and to support one another, and to not give up our physical space.
My name is Rene Yanez, house manager, curator for Day of the Dead, artist, and I also do the garden here at SOMArts. It's one of my pleasures, actually. This exhibition, I'm working with Melora Green, curator at SOMArts. I'm very excited. It's actually her first exhibit that she's putting together. So I'm excited to work with Melora, to work with the staff here, and she's bringing in some really good people to talk about alternative spaces. So I'm excited. I'm gathering the material now. I'm writing the text, and I'm hoping to make a good display that people would like. It's a difficult situation for nonprofit art spaces to keep up with the rents that are happening now. So things like that you have to communicate, but we need culture, and we need working class people in the community, and hopefully some of that reflects their needs for culture and to express about identity issues and political issues. So all of those things I'm hoping to put together just a glimpse. The amount of space that I'm getting is not very big, so I'm going to try to be selective on the images that I use and the text, and try to explain to people. Hopefully they'll get a glimpse.
My name is Jess Young. I'm interim director of SOMArts Cultural Center. Previously, for 4 years, I was director of communications and community engagement. And originally my work here was about connecting audiences on and offline to the work of the organization, and doing institutional marketing, and getting tons of people involved in our wonderful events, exhibitions, classes, and rental events. And now I am stepping up as SOMArts interim leader as we look for a new person who will take this organization boldly forward. I absolutely think alternative spaces are critical. I think alternative spaces have historically been a place for marginalized communities to find and develop their artistic voices, to connect with others, and to learn. I think that one of the most powerful things that I've seen in my nearly 5 years of working here is the way that art develops as people have opportunities to show it, and as they get support from organizations like SOMArts. I think having places to break new ground, to test out ideas even if they fail, is super critical. And when we don't have alternative spaces, there are fewer and fewer opportunities for artists to do this.
I'm Kathleen McDonald. I am from the West Indies, specifically Barbados. That's where I grew up, and I moved to the Bay Area to pursue higher education 7 years ago. As an artist from the Caribbean, I feel like I don't have much of a community here, and that sort of was the inspiration for me to make this piece about West Indian heritage and about the West Indies culture, about my culture, and sort of reclaiming that for myself. Even though a lot of that was lost during colonization, I feel like I was able to reclaim it a little bit by remaking that history and presenting it and placing it in this art world that doesn't know too much about the Caribbean.
My name is Matt McKinley, McKinley Art Solutions. Here at SOMArts, I'm the lead installer. I'm also an exhibit designer for some of the exhibitions that come through the main gallery. Outside of SOMArts, I'm an art consultant and exhibit designer and installer for a variety of venues in a variety of situations. Alternative spaces are really the backbone of what makes San Francisco a vital art scene. Every city has galleries, you know, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Santa Fe, Miami. San Francisco is vital in the sense that, and the alternative spaces are vital in San Francisco in terms of, there's, I think at last count, over 30,000 artists working in the 9 Bay Area counties producing artwork. All these places, all these people deserve somewhere to show their work and to display their work. It's the type of cultural enrichment that makes San Francisco unique. There's so many opportunities to engage with original artwork, and it's the connection to that creativity that the average person gets to take advantage of that helps keep that thread alive, which you know, in the era of everything being online and the loss of connection that a lot of people are wanting to get. You know, it's one thing to get that through your social media and through viewing pictures in a digital format, but when you encounter a piece of original art, especially if it's in a setting where you weren't quite expecting to see that, it can be a really enriching experience.
My name is Allison Snowpeck. I am the programs manager at ArtSpan. The way that San Francisco is currently changing, and economically, and with real estate, and the ability for artists to remain in San Francisco under these changing conditions, it is definitely important to have alternative spaces available for people in the artistic world who are creating their artwork for the passion behind artwork and not necessarily to make a lot of money in a city where you need to have a lot of money in order to sustain yourself.
My name is Carmina Eliason, and I have brought in a piece that I've been working on for the last couple of years called La Casa de mi Abuela. I think we're always going to need alternative spaces, for sure. There's always people who need a space to be able to tell their stories, and for me as a woman, and for me as the kind of artwork that I do, the kind of being able to tell my family's stories, and the only place that I could imagine telling them is in an alternative space, because there's a safety there of being able to say those things out loud and to have people approach them and be open to them in a way that maybe isn't possible in mainstream spaces.
I'm Carolina Quintanilla, and I'm the exhibitions intern here. I've been here since, I want to say, November last year. I don't think there is enough alternative spaces. This space has been like amazing to me. It's given me like motivation and mentorship. I'm exhibiting, and I've never done that before, and that's only possible because of the mentorship that I've had in this alternative space. I also think that we need more alternative spaces in our neighborhoods, not just, you know, like in Soma or in downtown. I think that we need some in our neighborhoods for, you know, us to go to.
Well, my name is Dwayne Detterville. I'm a visual artist and a writer and scholar of visual culture. And a good deal of my focus in both my artwork and my writing has to do with African and African diasporic visual culture, Black visual culture.
I'm Reefer One, and spray can muralist. I've been working as a revolutionary artist for almost 30 years now, and I'm the director of a Pan-African spray can art organization called Aerosol, and I'm one of the primary organizers of the Open.
Yeah, absolutely. We still need alternative spaces because we're living in a neo-European nation state, you know, Western nation state that has some pretty oppressive practices in regards to African people. And our focus is, you know, liberation for African people, you know, spiritually, intellectually, physically, etc., and so forth. So space is very important in that regard, and this piece that we're displaying is very important in that regard. So yeah, we absolutely need alternative spaces. And we do that autonomously without permission. We create alternative space.
Yes, I'll speak directly, you know, to the question in the sense that instead of saying alternate spaces, I mean, we need safe Black African spaces. Where we can find points of unity with other struggling people in terms of our allies that are struggling against the same system of white supremacy, that's cool. But our particular plight in the world right now requires African people to have safe Black African spaces. So I'm definitely an advocate for that and working to build it and support it wherever I can in the African diaspora. So absolutely.
My name is Kathy Adams, and I'm a photographer, and I make work about the land and the body and putting myself out there, like representation of a body that's rarely seen in photography. I believe that we've made like great achievements in like art and in culture to kind of broaden some things, but I still feel like there's pieces missing, there's definitions not happening, there's general broadening, but there's not specifics. And so that's kind of what my job as an artist is to do, is to be more specific once we broaden generally.
My name is Marlon Sagana Ingram. I'm here working on an exhibition called Beautiful Connection. Wow. You know, there's like a whole generation out there of kids in the street art culture that just take alternative spaces, but yeah, I think we should have more. Yeah, they create, you know, space for imagination, pretty much. I think that's always healthy. But like, me being an old hip-hop enthusiast, like, it's always about the message. So it's not really too much focus on the art, but more of the message. But I'm glad that SOMArts is giving me, I'm thankful, very appreciative of SOMArts giving me an opportunity to deliver this message.